Guys ready?
He's a good kid. I like the coach too.
All right, good evening. We're going to go ahead and get started. It's 5:30. Our first item tonight is a public works session in which we will be hearing from Mr. Damian Magus with Raymond James on financial bonding capacity. Mr. Yancey, do you have anything further before we get started?
Can't wait to start.
All right. Well, with no further ado, Damian, the floor is yours.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. Tonight I'd like to talk about a unified project. School corporation looking at the possibility of proposed several projects would. And I think Ice Miller will address this a little later, but in terms of combining all of those into one unified project, and then I'm going to talk about the phasing in of each and possible 1, 3, 2, however you want to break out the project. Or the funding of the project. This will be just for starting a discussion. This isn't anything that's set or anything, but a possibility of looking at funding a unified project. So we'll start with. Okay. I don't know if you can see this or not, but on you have the handout. So on page 2, just real quickly, this is the debt service fund budget for the school corporation, the common school fund loans, then all of the bond issues along with general obligation bonds, and then the footnotes for what each one of those bonds finance, and all the way on. And then there were also the pension bonds that matured last year. So on the total is your actual debt service school fund budget. Okay. Page 3, I think, as you all know, I like pictures, and you can see that. This is the budget, and a drop or a cliff from 2007 to 2008, 28, and then 2033 to 2034. And over the past several years, we've done general obligation bonds and bond issues, all with varying lengths that we've created these kind of cliffs that would allow the school corporation and down the road community administration, if there were needs, to address those needs and to try to keep the overall budget or the overall rate or the overall levy level. And so that's why you can see it's we've got this a cliff and then another cliff, etc. So that's the budget, and this is what the tax rate, the debt service fund tax rate looks like. And it stayed roughly somewhere around 35, 40 cents or so. Currently it's at just shy of 40 cents at 0.3990 for 2026. So all of my numbers and slides here, I use the current certified assessed value, is $1.8 billion. I've not made any assumptions for any growth or any decrease. Now, the gorilla in the room is Senate Bill 1, and really it's kind of taking a look, kind of year to year. In terms of what Senate Bill 1 is going to. There have been forecasts that have been, I'll say, all over the place, but for example, last year there were forecasts for 2026 that had losses, and all but 5 out of the 292 school corporations all but 5 had increases. So I think as we move forward, it's going to be a kind of year-to-year, see what the AV is and kind of plan going forward with that. But I've made no assumptions for any growth. And then putting the overall rate together, so the gray is the existing debt, the green is the operation, and your overall rate's just shy of 95 cents. And then again, you can see it kind of stays at 95 and then drops between 27, 28, and then 30, 34. In looking at this unified project, there's been talk of, or I know you've discussed, possibility of doing general obligation bonds, and then maybe also just some first mortgage bonds, holding corporation bonds like we've done in the past. For the a general obligation issue, there is a statutory limit in terms of how much GO debt that you can issue, and the calculation is essentially 1/3 of 2% of your assessed value. So if your certified net is 1.8 billion, 2% of that is 36 million, 1/3 of that is 12 million. We do have 3.8 million of the 24 general obligation issue still outstanding. So because the capacity is cumulative, if you take that out, 12 million minus the 3.8 gives you have 8.2 million of GO capacity left. Okay? So that I just kind of brought that in. So the next slide, I didn't break out budgets. This is more conceptual. Again, looking at a unified project over the course of the next 2-3 years. Again, I think the discussion has been maybe a general obligation bond this year that would fund some needs, then a 12 million, so like $6.5 million general obligation bond, followed by a bond issue next year, and then maybe a larger issue in a couple of years. So how would that look? If you look at the debt service fund, the budget here, if we were to issue a GO issue, a general obligation bond issue in 2026, we could start making payments as early as 2027. So the blue there is the GO issue, and so that $6.5 million bond issue would get paid off in essentially 4 years, and maybe a small payment in 2027. Then, coming back in 2027, maybe a $12 million bond issue, and that's kind of the tan. And so if we issued a bond in 27, you could start making payments in 28, so we could have 2 larger payments in 28 and the smaller payments. That kind of mirror the way that the debt currently is coming off. And then finally, in 2029, with payments starting in 2030, maybe a larger issue. I mean, again, a $50 million bond issue. So if there was bonds were issued in 29, payments could be in 30, and then you could sit there and see 2 larger payments or 2 smaller payments there for a few years, and then larger payments as debt come off. And then finally, if you wanted to, you could continue GO issues, so that the general obligation bonds that we issue this year would mature in 2031. And if you wanted to, and that's where where the blue picks up again up at there at the top, start issuing general obligation bonds again. And so this is a 1.3 or just shy of $1.4 million payment, whether you wanted to issue them every year or if you wanted to issue for a couple of years or however. But it kind of shows that you have the capacity to issue 6.5, 12, and even a 50 million, and then on top of that, if you wanted to, continue to do annual general obligation bonds. Okay, so this is what the budget will. Again, this is just discussion purposes, a way that it could happen. So if we take a look at what happens to your debt service rate, you can see it kind of stays at around, it would go up it would stay around 40 cents for a few years, and then when that larger issue comes on, it would go from about 40 cents to about 46 cents for a few years, and then you can see we create troughs. I'm sorry?
When you get to the 2032 out, when you do, our existing debt starts to drop off, and then we could possibly issue another gold bond.
If you wanted to, yes.
All right. So are the magnitude of the blue sections similar? So it would be like another 6.5? Is that what's that? It's just to show us.
How whatever you
Okay.
wanted. Yeah, no. So this, what I did, I have a spreadsheet that we could do like a what if you wanted to
Right.
kind of see. But this was, we issue 6.5 for essentially 4 years, 12 for 20, and then 50 for 20, and then create, if you wanted to, create these, the pointer doesn't work, but create a trough here that you could start geo
For
debt.
potential for geo bonds.
And then I backed into a 1.4 million because it kind of keeps this level.
Okay,
But it could be whatever, but you have the capacity.
okay.
So, but if you didn't, I mean, we could increase these payments. I think what it's going to come down to is, I mean, you've done a great job of looking, okay, well, I know that we need X now and next year and then, but take it one step further, what's the next project after? And if it's 10 years from now, well then, okay, maybe we try to keep everything level for a few more years and then create a trough. And that's, we've been really, I think, diligent, like I said, over the past few years in issuing debt, paying it off quickly, and creating troughs that allow us to be at this plus or minus 40 cents. And we've been there for some time. And so I think the goal would try to be, again, kind of at that level. Yes.
So as we pay out to the charter schools millions of dollars here in 28, we're gonna have to have money to pay that. So we're gonna be bonding to help give them money. This is how the law works. Our operations fund broke in about 2032.
Hard to know precisely.
Yes, Senate Bill 1 is
yeah.
hard to understand until we play, we're gonna have to live it for a while to see how it works. But we're very blessed, let me tell you. You have a lot of capacity here to get things done, and I feel like it's a good time to be a star. It really is. So,
Yeah, so, I mean, just kind of going back to this. So this is, like I said, we've been very diligent to create this space. And this was going back probably 5-6 years ago, knowing that we want to give a future board the ability, if there is need to do work. And so that, and so the same thought would be, as we tackle this, how do we create, where do you want to create those troughs? And we could do that now. And again, trying to keep, the one thing, and Mr. Yancey spoke of this, and I'd like to, I'm going to move away from this and go into the spreadsheet here. This is kind of the what if. All of this is makes all the pretty pictures that we just talked about. But when I want to, okay, here we go. I'm going to blow this up. Because of Senate Bill 1, okay. So, again, as I said, this looks at the AV, current payments, and then here's the 6.5 million GO, the 12. This was the issue that we did last year, and then the bigger issue, and you could see the rate is kind of at 40 cents, then jumps to 46, and then comes back down to about 42. Instead, because of the uncertainty of Senate Bill 1 in terms of what that's going to do to your AV, a lot of school corporations have kind of changed their thinking. Instead of looking at managing a rate, looking at more managing either a budget or a levy. Okay? And so, for example, with this, if you total your debt service, you're looking at, in 26, you're at 7.9. You kind of stay at 7.9. There's a little increase. And then it's around 9.2 million and then 8.5. So that's the budget. And then when we get over to the levy, your levy is essentially around 8.3, and then it drops to about 7.7. And so it may be easier, kind of like we manage. I know that I need X amount for my mortgage. I know I need X amount for my utility. There's no rate at home. I know I need this amount of money. And so maybe kind of changing the thinking to, we need X in our debt service, and we can't control what they do up in Indianapolis, and the rate's going to be whatever the rate's going to be, given whatever the changes they make. But we know that we need, $7 million, $8 million, $9 million, and that's what we're going to start budgeting at. So that may be something to take a look at. And like I said, so you've had really nice growth here. Your assessed value from 20 to 26 has gone from 1.1 billion to 1.8 billion. 4%, 16, 3.5, 16, 3% growth year after year. So it's. And here's the thing with Senate Bill 1: it does not affect this. Your gross is still going to be your gross. What they changed were the deductions to get to the net. And so if your gross still continues and it's greater than the loss, you could still see potentially an increase. And that's why, but who knows? And so I think it's, again, kind of year. I'm sorry? Yeah. Yeah. So, there's a lot of, going back to.
I have a question.
Yes.
You're basing a lot of this on what-if scenarios, and I can play a what-if scenario all day long about anything. How long before reality sets in that you know what's going on?
You're talking about Senate Bill 1?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to know a lot by 2028 because all that.
So two more years yet before.
No, we're going to hit already but that's where the chart comes in 28.
Right.
So that's where the full hit. Now, we start next year on the correct payment.
Right, we'll start
know.
seeing some of what we've already talked about in terms of the operations
Right.
fund getting reduced. But in terms of how it's gonna roll through and affect the rate, that's every 2 years. The legislative session happens in Indianapolis, and if they make additional changes to
Right.
Senate Bill 1, we wouldn't know. So it's the short session right now, and there's not things
There-
we'd be able to speak better to what's happening right now.
Yeah, Kristen may have a better handle of, but I have not heard of anything major happening to Senate Bill 1 during the short session. I would not be surprised if next year there's some changes.
think it's not in next year, so next year something.
And we had an update a few meetings back that was something to the effect of 700K in the first year of the loss in operations budget, 700K or so the next.
Well, I don't think that applies anymore.
Oh, you don't think that applies?
No, I think that that was back in, if I recall, I think there was because we looked at that with
That was later. It was after it passed.
at the one work session. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think those numbers came out in April, and I don't know that if those are still correct. Right.
Okay, well, we need to revisit that then. We have about 9 minutes left, Damien.
I'm sorry.
We have about 9 minutes before our regular meeting.
Okay. Yeah. No. So I mean, like I said, given the information that we know, and you have a cliff coming in 20-something. That is, there is a lot of ability, and that's why I said instead of looking at managing 39 cents, if we kept the levy at 7,950,000. That's kind of where we are right now in 26. You're going to go from 7,960,000 down to 4,478,000. And so if we look at managing a budget or managing a levy instead of looking at a rate, because, like I said, what the effects of Senate Bill 1 on AV are going to be, until we get into it, I think are going to be kind of a year-by-year basis.
So to be clear, you use the phrase, what we can do now, and this board is consistent through the end of 2026, and then it'll be a different board. To me, it seems like we can affect the 2026 issue of the GEO bond now, but we could not affect necessarily the 2027 or the 2029. Or are you saying there's something we do now?
So I think
affect all of
an approach, and I think this is where Kristen is going to talk, is to look at combining all three. So say 50 million, 12, and 6, and maybe a $70 million unified budget. Okay? And then that gives you...
I guess my question is, how does that play out? I mean,
So you would go through and get all of the approvals for a
future
borrowing
years?
up to 70 million, if you wanted to,
for future years.
for future years. And so that would allow you, if you wanted to, a $6.5 million bond GO issue this year. Okay, so then you've got 63 million left. And then if you wanted to next year or 2 years from now, however, it gives you a number. You get the authorization now,
Pre-authorized. Issuance in
and then
26, or
as
27,
needed,
28,
you issue.
29. Right, I just wanted to make sure I understand
Yeah.
the
So that's
sequencing.
an option is to yeah.
Okay.
And so it could be 70, it could be 50, whatever you. But I think in terms what we talked about was, I think you need 6.5 now for operational, and then maybe 12 a smaller project, and then a larger project possibly in the future. And so go through the process now, get the authorization, and then as I guess you could look at it as a $70 million line of credit. As you need it, you can draw down on it if you need it.
Okay, we have 5 minutes remaining. Any further questions or discussion point? Damien, any closing comments, or Mr. Yancey?
Well, I mean, you're in great shape. coming up here. There's a cliff coming on that's going, regardless of what's happening in Indy or Senate Bill 1, you have the ability to address, a lot of your needs.
We do, it seems, probably an RFI for the board for a future meeting is what that SB 1 updated impact is. If that 700K per year for the next 2 years and then doubling of that, that sticks in my mind right now. If that's not the case, we'll need to know what the updated numbers are and impact numbers are, if we can get that. So.
I want to say that there was a legislative services update on that.
Could have been, but I was thinking we heard about it well past the bill actually
Was
becoming
it that?
law.
Okay.
Yeah, so I thought it was in the fall.
I'm sorry?
It was after the Senate Bill 1 passed.
after it had-
Yeah,
it
I think
had
it
passed.
was,
Okay.
yeah, summertime, we had a update as of the impact.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, anything further? All right, Damien, thank you so much. And we'll